Good morning, everyone. My name is Heidi, and I'm grateful and blessed to be in recovery.
This is our Why Wait for Recovery Sunday morning recovery meeting, and we're glad that everybody's here. It's kind of rainy here in Plantation, Florida, so we have some stragglers. Hi to everybody out there. It's good to see you. Hi, girls.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Hi, Ange.
Hi.
So you want to say a couple of words to the folks that
Yes,
saw
I
Heidi's
would.
home from her vacay?
So I just flew in from Africa. My arms are exhausted, and so no, it's been a long trip, but it was very, very enlightening. But I'll go more into that a little bit later. Firstly, I'm just really blessed and grateful to be in recovery. One, I'm a compulsive overeater, and I have been an addict for my whole life, essentially. I have learned some incredible things along the journey about acceptance. Acceptance really is key. Being aware for so long, I came to realize there's certain things I cannot control, even though I'd love to. It was also interesting being around things that kind of speak to me, because I'm in familiar places, familiar foods, familiar territories, and in a way that I felt I needed to show up certain times. So there was a lot of learning and challenges and really triumphs as well over the part that I was there. But I think let's just check in with everyone else and
Yeah, and it's good. And you touched on acceptance, so I'm going to touch on it back with you. And so acceptance, we talk about you guys is first accepting the fact that our brains are wired a little bit differently and that we're addicts. And so we have certain, I'm going to call them rules, that we follow so that we could stay on this recovery journey. And then you talk about acceptance, about the people and the places around you and the stuff that you can't change. Right? That whole thing, except the things I cannot change that we say and we say and we say, but what does that mean, actually? And that's really cool because you were in a different place, and so it wasn't what was familiar to you. And so then I think there's a whole lot more acceptance going on, actually, right? Because
Right.
you're in touch with stuff that isn't just your regular, everyday, normal life or the stuff that we're used to. And it's so putting yourself in other situations where you still have to choose to stay in recovery. So that's pretty cool.
right, and I think part of that is also having the strength from being in program and having a program to work, even though I couldn't go to meetings because it was challenging, time, place, everything that was going on. There wasn't one day that I didn't think about recovery.
And you guys, she was in Africa, so I don't want us to be able to use that excuse, yeah, I was in
Right.
New York where there are 800 billion meetings. She was in Africa, so it's a little bit different. So I just wanted to put that out there as far as you not being able to go to a meeting.
Right. So I did check in and I did watch you guys, just so you know, on Wednesdays and Sundays where I could, I did check in, and it felt great still being connected to my community, which is essential in recovery. So I found in terms of strengths of recovery, having a program, knowing where I am, being able to check in, to be able to say, why am I feeling what I'm feeling before I actually go to those go-to, get lost in the food scenarios. And also just knowing that if I needed to, I could either watch something online or be able to check in or pick up the phone or something.
Yeah, good. So that's cool. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
You're good?
Waking up, yes.
Yeah? Anything that you want to share? Or are you still asleep?
Just glad to be here.
Okay. You're good? Cravings are good? Better?
PMSing rough week, but I made it through, so
Okay.
yeah.
And rough week in regard to
Just wanting a piece of something sweet.
just with cravings.
Yeah, cravings.
Okay, and so then we'll talk about why that is.
Mhm.
You know, because when there's something, oftentimes, when we want to use, there's some reason for that.
Mhm.
And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. I'm tired, but good.
Good. And we talked about a little bit of drama in your house, and that's also another thing of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of accepting the fact that, I don't know why that's not on.
It is on. It's just.
Okay. Accepting the fact that there's going to be stuff going on always, especially with the kids, right? And the more we react to it, not only the more we teach them to react to it, but the more unrest we have, you know, spiritually, right? The more we're like, ah, and then our day is kind of a day spent in chaos. And then in a couple of days or a couple of weeks when we look back to it, we're going to see that we spent all of this effort and energy on something that went away anyway. and that we want to make sure as we're working in our recovery, it's kind of cool because we learn how to act instead of react, and then we get to hand those tools down to our kids, right? Because they see the way that we're acting or reacting, so not reacting. So thanks for sharing that with me as well. You got anything to add, girl? Nope, not yet. Okay. All right.
So I just wanted to also bring up, there were some insights that came out of this journey. So I was in South Africa, for anyone who didn't know, I had lots of events and things I needed to go to. Met some incredible people who are in other forms of service.
Mm-hmm.
And it was enlightening because I went for a good friend's lobola, which is, lobola is when you're getting married, there's a negotiation between, when you're Xhosa or a certain tribe, there's a negotiation, and lobola, when you translate into English, is acceptance, which was quite amazing because the community that came was full of love, okay, and kindness and gentleness and encouragement. So I'm amongst people who have very, very little, except what they do have is community, family, and a sense of belonging and a sense of support. And it's quite interesting when we come into the States and it's very me orientated and me focused. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to get lost in the things that are really not that important.
So important. Yeah, and so when we talk about walking in fear, you guys, and we've said that so many times, fear means either I'm not going to get something that I want, or I'm going to lose something that I have. And so when I'm talking, especially with Ange, and I'll say something and she's like, yeah, that's a real first world problem. And so we talk about, you know, we go to work and we work hard and we have to make a certain amount of money because our kids need these certain sneakers so that they fit in, and, you know, we have to drive a certain car and we want to live in a certain house. And a lot of our lives revolve around what is material, not what is spiritual, right? Not so much how we're connected to each other, right, but connected to what we look like. And that's part of what we look like on the outside. And so when we're doing that, it's kind of like caring about what we look like on the outside, as opposed to when you talk about people who are close and in community and care about each other, they don't have so much to lose, right? So they're not afraid of not getting stuff that they want, because the stuff that they want is their life and their faith and their community. Right, and that they have.
And it's also not only losing things, but giving. The only thing you really can give is of yourself.
Right.
So when you don't have that much material stuff, and even though they're eating, they're going to school, they're doing all the things, and it's not everybody, I'm just talking about a specific experience, you become the most important thing. You and what you give of yourself, mm-hmm, and you as an essence of a human being, becomes the thing that counts the most. And that is something that me as an addict, tend to lose sight of. And that's when I go back into using, when I feel isolated and I feel lonely and I feel unsupported. Not only, it starts with me.
Right, and when what you're giving is giving of yourself, you don't have to worry about losing that.
And
because it's what's inside you. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, your will becomes so
and so we're not going to lose the way that we feel, right? And we're not going to worry about, you know, if I'm in a caring, loving relationship with you, I'm not afraid of losing that, and I'm not afraid of giving to you. And so there's nothing behind that fear of I'm not going to get, you know, I'm not going to get what I want, or I'm going to lose what I already have.
So also remember something, it's 22 years since I was last in Cape Town, and that's a place where I've got lots of friends, and for 22 years I haven't seen people. So there was also a certain amount of fear and insecurity going there of what do people think, what are people going to say, you know, all those stories we have inside our heads. And all of a sudden, it wasn't that important. And all I kept thinking about was what you keep telling us. Feelings are not facts. So anytime I start thinking of this and going to reach for that candy bar, whatever that other substance was, I would think of that and recenter. So that really anchored me as well.
Yeah, and that we don't have to change the way that we feel. And so you went through what you went through yesterday. And I would imagine, because you're real new, so I would imagine it's hard to go through those times without picking up something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's your fallback.
Totally.
Yeah.
We would have been either wine or some horrible food.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I decided to start cleaning my closet out. I was organizing makeup. I was busy. Like, so that I didn't do it, because I knew I would do it.
Okay. And then remember, and so did you reach out to anybody in the community? Good. Mm-hmm. All right, and so that's super important. And those are the things that we don't lose, right? That you get to reach out to somebody in your community, and that can always be there for
And
you.
we've been really good all week.
So,
Like when I gained 42 pounds overnight.
so congratulations for throwing your scale away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so someone in our community was, and actually I saw you in my office, and we were talking about how it said on your scale or whatever that you gained a couple of pounds, and then your scale, which obviously wasn't working. She woke up yesterday and it said that she gained 42 pounds overnight. Now imagine if the scale said we lost 42 pounds overnight. We'd be so happy, right? So you threw your scale away. And so, yeah, that's not allowing something sitting there on the outside, some number, to dictate what your feelings are for the day, right? So that's part of the addiction too, is paying attention to the number as opposed to paying attention to where we are spiritually.
I told Michelle you were going to say that.
Yeah, so told her. So that's awesome that you did that, because that's super important. And so if you're doing the next right thing, you know, just because we're doing the next right thing don't mean the next right thing is going to happen. But if you're doing the next right thing spiritually for you inside, the next right thing is happening. And so congratulations for doing that. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Did you get here okay? The whole 595
I
thing?
couldn't believe I all of these flyover things. The whole trip was like all these things.
And you made it here.
My AC kicked out in the middle of it.
And how are you doing?
Okay, all right. I
You
told
okay?
my niece facts aren't feelings the other day. That is so cool, Uncle John. Yeah, I know.
He's a genius. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And we know that you went through that with the cat. You still doing okay?
No, my brother's dying. But you know, it's you know, life keeps coming at you.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
All right. You're staying clean, so that's
Yeah.
good.
No, I'm obviously I've modified my behavior.
Good. Very good. Right. And so, you know, it's more than behavior modification too, because you've also changed the way that you look at things. We talked about that last time, whether you realize it or not.
How so? How so?
When you first came in, you were super combative. Anything that I said, you were combative about, correct?
Correct.
Right? And now,
I don't remember it that way.
yeah, well, we have it on tape. So we can show you. We remember it truthfully.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so of course, when you first come into any kind of community, and especially if you're here because you want to be here because you want to start making some changes, and then you don't know if what we're talking about is a whole lot of caca, you know, some kind of like voodoo stuff, and now we're gonna hold hands and, you know, talk about Hare Krishna again, sing Kumbaya, and, you know, peace and good love, which is basically what my life is about. But anyway, you know, you're not sure about the process and what it means, and so it's still
What process?
this process.
Well, what is this process?
Of recovery, of changing the way that we look at stuff, of understanding that feelings aren't facts, of knowing that just because we feel some way, we don't have to fall back on old behaviors, right? And that if we're doing our best to do our best, the world's going to turn the way that it turns. The world turns the way that it turns whether we're doing our best or not. So the world is going to turn the way that it turns, no matter how much we want to be in control of what's happening. And we're not, right? We're in control of our own actions and our own perspective. And that's all.
Well, but when I say I modified my behavior, and that I don't fall back to cookies.
Right, absolutely. And you have modified your behavior, but you've also changed your thinking a tad.
In what respect?
Again, so when you first came in, you were super combative.
I just asked.
No, of course,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, but so you were kind of fighting like what was going on as opposed to just relaxing into it. You know, and saying it's okay.
I think I do both. I'm just some things I don't understand. I'm an asker.
Yeah, that's cool though.
You know.
That's cool. That's how we become learners, right?
Yeah.
By asking. So that's cool.
You know, I think that it's to me interesting that you know, I could still go do, you know, whatever, drugs, alcohol, and go to a buffet.
Right, we all can.
Right, but it just seems it doesn't from the months of not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say I do miss some of it.
Of course you do.
I don't default to that. I don't think to do it.
Good.
It's not in my repertoire.
Good.
You know.
And so, the longer that you have clean, the easier it is to stay clean as far as not picking up goes, unless you have some great challenge. And when you do have those challenges, if you are part of a community, if you do have people to reach out to, it does make it easier.
But I have some massive
Challenge. Jeez.
Didn't think I did emotional. I'm watching my TikTok,
I'm really, really sorry.
but but I don't go back. I don't pick up. So I'm used to not picking up.
Good. And I'm really sorry about your brother. That really sucks. Really sorry. And it does show so much strength that you go through it and you say, okay, I'm not going to pick up. So it's hard.
I don't really say that. I just don't.
You're doing it, yeah. And so life is still going to hit us in the ass, and that's the way that life is. And whether or not we succumb to that is what happens is when life does, hit us in the ass, and then now we have this horrible challenge, and now we have an extra horrible challenge. And so it just adds so much insult to injury, and then we get to be sad and ashamed at the same time. And that sadness really is enough. So I'm really sorry that you're going through that. I really am. It sucks.
So, just talking about this acceptance and things that happen around us that we can't control, being taken out of a situation which was part of the journey of moving out to another country where I didn't have the internet and telephone and access the way that I always did.
just now.
When I was in South Africa for a month, I left certain things behind here. My parents are elderly, both of them are not well, we're both going through extreme treatments. So there's always the challenge of do I go, do I stay, and making that decision to put my family on other things, other commitments first, was very much a struggle at the time of making the decision, and being away so far and uncommunicative really added to the challenge of it. But also, I could still have the choice of how I'm showing up. They're going through what they're going through, and unfortunately, in the next 3 years, who knows what's going to happen. It's not looking positive.
And I know I'm interrupting you, but in the next 3 minutes, nobody knows what's going to happen.
But it took an active decision to show up the way that I choose to show up, as being kind, compassionate, loving, and all those things, because those things we're not going to be able to control anyway, no matter how empathetic or sympathetic, which was one of the things that I learned on this journey. Being empathetic and sympathetic doesn't mean to say I've got to be codependent and take things on. I can still look after myself and my well-being and still be there and show up for other people, however that is. Things are going to play out the way they are. Things will go crazy at work, long stories, but anyway, today, a month later, I'm still sitting on the sofa and I'm here, and whatever happened anyway, because I couldn't control the things that were going down, but I could still be loving, compassionate, and all those things I wanted to do, and stay and be in recovery and do all these things along my journey. So we do have those challenges, and I came to realize acceptance as well, because acceptance for me is accepting that making the most of this time and now and being the best that I can possibly be is the only thing I can really do.
Yeah, and so, in Why Wait for Recovery, we talk about binging and obesity, overeating, emotional overeating, and that's our drug of choice that we talk about. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I'm going to refer back to right now, they have that acceptance is the answer to all of my problems today. And so, if you think about it, acceptance is the answer to all of my problems today. And when I'm not in acceptance, it's because I'm trying to change something outside of me, some person, some place, some action that that there's no way, no matter how badly I want to change it, there's no way that I can change it, right? So it's like not being in acceptance, we're going to say something stupid. It's going to pour this morning. We could be pissed off that it's going to pour this morning, or we could accept the fact that it's going to rain. And so maybe we'll stay inside and maybe we'll change our plans. Whether we're pissed off or not, it's going to rain, right? we're human beings. Do we accept the fact that people are gonna die? Yeah, people are gonna die. Are we gonna feel horrible about it? Yeah, we are. You know, we're human beings. So that's accepting the fact that we're gonna feel bad, that we're gonna be sad, you know, and that's okay. You know, that we won't stay there forever, but that's okay.
So that was really one of the interesting things, is being able to, as an addict, the toughest thing for me to deal with is my own emotions, and to be able to just sit through an emotion and go, this is what I'm feeling, so I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling all of that, and sit with that for a couple of minutes, rather than my modus operandi is really getting busy. So instead of dealing with my emotions, I'll make myself extremely busy and do it.
Right.
And then it comes back and it bites me on the ass later.
Yeah, in the beginning, with what you're doing, where you said there was some drama and some chaos in the house, and so you made yourself super busy, that's not such a bad thing, especially in the beginning, because I'm going to tell you, in the beginning, we're going to do whatever we need to do so that we don't pick up, so that we're not back there, right? So that we're showing our brain, no matter what's going on, I don't need to pick up. And then as that gets easier, then it will be about being able to feel what you're feeling, hopefully share how you're feeling with somebody else, because remember, we tend to use when we isolate, right? We isolate when we use when we isolate. Share with somebody in your community about how you're feeling, work it through. Understand, again, with yesterday, acceptance, the answer to all of your challenges. I mean, could you have changed what was going, the only thing that you could have done was have a conversation with your kid, right? And help your kid not to react. And to know that there are people out there that are crappy. You know, there are people that are out there that are great, and people that are out there that are crappy, and that the more she understands that she could just let that go and not take it on, because it doesn't have to really do with her. And to teach her that just because other people are assholes, that's not about her.
Well, I told her the only person you can be in control of is yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
And I've been really thinking that a lot with a lot of friendships that I have.
Yeah.
That I'm just like, that's how I'm going with it. I can't control the way other people act.
Right.
And I can't get upset about it.
Right, because getting upset about it doesn't do anything. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I'm just not.
Right, and so remember, the people that you feel like you have to control the way that they're acting, you want to think about your relationship with that person.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe that person isn't so great for you spiritually, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have those bumper stickers, mean people suck. You guys, mean people suck. Like they do, right? They suck up our energy when we hang out with them, right? They suck up our reality. You know, we get like caught in the middle of their chaos. You don't need that, right? So if you hang with the people that are kind and doing their best.
Which is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know you are. And it makes your life happier. And it's a big adjustment to let go of people that you, and I know that you've done that as well, to let go of people that you used to hang out with, that your relationships revolve around drama. And there are going to be some people in our lives where our relationships do revolve around some type of drama sometimes, and then it's accepting the fact that this is a person that I love, that loves me, and I'm not going to play into their drama. Right? So when we make that list of what's positive and what's negative, if there are more positives, that might be somebody that we want to keep, and then it's up to us to change and just say, wow, this person is doing their best. And so I can accept that. Viewer question, yes.
Okay, Monique says,
Hi, Monique.
I'm really new. It's been 11 days. How do you get rid of the guilt?
The guilt about, so Monique, your question was about how do we get rid of the guilt? And if we're talking about how we get rid of the guilt about what we have done in the past, there ain't a effing thing we could do about it right now. It's done, right? That's the old crying over spilt milk. So if I drop a cup of coffee and I break my favorite, or I break Hades' favorite mug, no matter how badly I want to put that mug back together, I can't. What I can do from now forward is let all of that go, right? We don't ever want to forget what we did, you guys, because we did it and it brought us here, right? But we do want to let go of the shame because it doesn't serve us. And so we did what we did. The only thing that we could do now is do our best to do our best and go forward like that. Life does take care of itself. You know, listen, it sucks to be using, it sucks when your family hates you and is scared, and it sucks when you're the girl that's gonna be living out on the street. It sucks to relapse. All of those things are horrible, horrible, horrible things. Do I want to forget them? No, I don't, because I don't want to relapse again. So no, I'm not going to forget what my head and my heart looked like before I relapsed. I don't want to forget what it looks like when somebody writes me a prescription and I take those meds, and somebody writes me another prescription and I take those meds. I can't forget that, because that puts me back into active addiction. So those things I'm not going to forget. The fact that my family hated me and was angry with me and was, hated me because they were scared, and didn't want to talk to me and didn't want to have a relationship with me because I was killing them. I don't want to forget that, but I'm definitely going to forgive myself, because it's not who I am right now. Right now I'm
Who
a good,
isn't who you are right
I'm a good,
Oh.
caring, loving, kind person who does her best to do her best. And I'm clean and I'm of service. Yes.
I would love to add something. I have bullied myself for years and years and years. I've carried so much shame and guilt. No one beats me up like I beat myself up. So part of the recovery process for me was, when I first started getting into it, the shame and the guilt, I had to decide how it was serving me. I couldn't change the things that I'd done in the past, because no matter what I did, it was the past and it was history. The only thing I could really do was treat myself the way that I treated others, which traditionally I'm kinder to others, I'm more present for others. I needed to treat myself with the same kindness and be able to let go of certain things, never forget them, because it helps ground me of the things I've done in the past are almost like a badge that I carry with me as a reminder of not going back to where I was, but it doesn't need to hurt me by keep going back, because that's my addiction. When I start going back to hurt myself and beat myself up, it gives me the reasons to be able to use and abuse myself as well. So letting go and being kinder in certain ways helped me within my recovery.
And I'm going to let you guys know, how you guys think that I'm a worse addict than you are, right? Because I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, and an anorexic. So for me, my stuff is super easy to see on the outside, right? And you guys perhaps didn't stop going to work, right? And I had to. And so it's easier to point a finger at my addiction. I'm not sure, Monique, if you're a drug addict, an alcoholic, or if you're, a binger or an overeater. It does look a little bit different. And so as far as the shame goes with alcoholics and drug addicts, for the people that, when we're in the middle of that part of active addiction, there are people that steal their family shit, and sell it for drugs. I mean, with food, fortunately, you guys didn't have to do that. And so there's a lot more as far as shame goes, because we did stuff that we wouldn't have done if we hadn't used, not just to ourselves, but to others. And so depending on where that shame is, that's why I asked. I don't know, will Monique tell us what her drug of choice was? Yeah, and so I'm not sure what that is. Bottom line is, again, you stole shit from people, get a job, give them the money back, say you're sorry, and do your best to do your best, because it's the only thing that you can do, right? And let it go. Really, and let it go. And so that's acceptance, because I need to accept the fact that that's where I was, it ain't where I am right now, and I don't have to live where I was, because I'm not who I was.
She says she's an overeater.
Okay, all right, perfect. So thank you for clarifying that.
So I just want to jump into the food side of this. So one of the insights I had traveling around, South Africans don't eat as much as we do. I mean, when you go
I don't
to a
think
restaurant,
anybody eats as much as we
when
do.
you go into a restaurant, the food is delicious, but it's smaller portions, but there is something else. There's pomp and ceremony. So when you go and you sit down, you're eating off proper plates, proper knives and forks, you get tea in a teapot with milk in a jug and sugar. Everything is served beautifully, which made me feel special. So I learned something during this process. I'm pulling out my best china and my best stuff, because when I make a meal, I want it to look good and I want to feel special and know that I'm eating really, really well and that I'm worth it. Instead of what I used to do before, which was go drive through the drive-throughs and all the wrappers in the back seat and under the seat, was different. That was stuffing something. This is nourishing. And I think there's a difference between eating for nourishment and eating because I am using. And there's a big difference between grabbing something because I'm tired, irritable, or something else is going on, or actually planning to make this a meal and sit down and enjoy it.
And so definitely when you say there's a difference between nourishment and stuffing myself, obviously, and that's the difference between eating healthy and living, we're going to call it normal, a happier, healthier life, and being an active addiction.
And also in terms of eating food ourselves, because we know what our trigger foods are. Everyone's different, everyone's got their different trigger foods. When we are taking the time to eat well and nourish ourselves well, we're not carrying any guilt about the things that we're putting in our body as well.
Right, we need to be careful about that, you guys. We want to make sure that we're not just saying, well, this isn't one of my trigger foods, so I can eat it.
Right.
You know, I hear people say that, well, you know, Oreos really were never a trigger food of mine, so I could have a couple of Oreos. It don't work like that, guys.
I'm not a compulsive overeater, I just love sugar.
Exactly. So the sugar, the rice bread, potato, pasta, sweets part, that's a dopamine receptor. That's the actual chemical addiction. And so we want to be super careful when we're talking about what our trigger foods are. Remember, we're addicts. And so that's like me saying, well, I hated beer because I hate beer. I do. I hate beer. Can I drink a beer? F no. I can't, because I'm not going to drink a beer. I'm going to drink a beer and then get my ass to the liquor store and buy a bottle of tequila and drink that. And so we don't want to do anything that triggers us chemically. So remember, rice, bread, potato, pasta, sweets, you know, starches are sugars as well as sugar. And that will put us back into active addiction. So.
And besides the active addiction, living with those cravings is hell. So once it goes in, all I'm thinking about 3-4 days later is, how can I get more? How do I add an extra spoon of sugar into whatever?
Right, and that's our active addiction.
Right.
So that's our brain wanting more, and you know, and getting more any way that we can, and falling back into those old behaviors that allowed us to go to bed guilty and wake up ashamed and feel disgusting about ourselves every single minute of the day.
I just have to add something here as well. We sometimes don't realize we're ingesting the amount of sugars and starches that we are, because if I don't take the time to read labels and I actually ask questions of what is in the food, the sources, the whatever it is that I'm ingesting, inadvertently sometimes I can put something in and I start craving, and the minute those cravings kick in, then I know I've put something in that I shouldn't have had into my body, because it's not a willpower issue, it's an allergy. For us that are sensitive to certain foodstuffs, it is a physical reaction that we actually have to these things, that all we want is we want more and more and more of it. And it doesn't become a question of that mind game, I promise I won't have more tomorrow. It becomes, I just can't go near the stuff because I know what the reaction looks like 3, 4, 5 days later.
Yeah, and actually, and we're not going to say what we can't, we're going to say what we choose, right? Because we need to make that a choice. And so it's what we choose to do and how we choose to take care of ourselves. And yeah, if you need to ask a question, ask a question. If you're going to go to a nutritionist that tells you that you can eat brown rice and you can't. It still raises the blood sugar, still touches the dopamine receptor. So if you're eating chicken, fish, and veggies and salad and egg whites, you know, basically, when you're eating proteins, vegetables, salads, and low sugar fruits, you're fine, and it doesn't trigger remember, addiction is a physical craving with a mental obsession. And so the mental obsession we work through in our recovery, we learn how to live differently. That physical craving, if we're going to feed our addiction chemically, we're going to stay addicted chemically. And so we need to work on both those, right? We say mind, body, and spirit. And so it's the body as far as not doing stuff that's going to keep us triggered, and you know, our spirit, which is most important. And that's learning how to live with acceptance, doing our best to do our best, always doing the next right thing as best as we can, right? And being a part of the community.
And also, as a food addict, there's another element, which is the planning element. When I was traveling, I couldn't take 120, 130 liquid muscle milks with me across countries and across continents. So the planning that I have here, that I know that if I have to get certain proteins in or whatever it is, I plan ahead for my week ahead. There I was out of place. So everything was out, and I did have quite a few challenges not being in my routine. So part of being a food addict is being able to say, this is what I need for tomorrow, this is what I'm eating, this is what I'm eating. So food plans are essential, but just because, let's say, Weight Watchers, I'm on Weight Watchers, doesn't mean everything on their food plan works for me. So as an addict, I make different choices, and I live my life as an addict. So I know if I touch certain things, I need to abstain from them. That's my choice that I make at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so you talked about going away, and we talk about food planning. It can't always happen. right? So you're away, but you can still make good choices, even if you haven't had a chance that day to plan your food. The food planning makes it easier, right? Because it takes the decision making
And that obsession.
out of it, yeah. And so we're not thinking about it. But sometimes we just can't do that, and then it's just not picking up. You know, it's just not picking up.
And we're not perfect. I mean, I'm not perfect by any means. I mean, I did slip. I absolutely did.
Okay, so excuse me.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about. I don't use that word slip, you guys.
No,
I don't. Right?
I relax.
So for me, if I have a beer, I don't call it a slip because it's not my drug of choice. I used, and that starts me at day one. And I have to do that because as long as I make that excuse that I slipped, slip is such a nice word, right? I slipped. I just had 3 shots of tequila. I slipped. But tomorrow don't look like that. Tomorrow looks like I'm on the floor throwing up, peeing on myself, being put into a treatment center because eventually that's that's where we wind up, right? We start like this with our slip. So if we use, we use. And part of, especially, we talked about this with food addiction, is owning the addiction. It's an addiction, right? It makes us feel guilty. It makes us feel shame, right? And it makes us out of control with what we're doing. And so let's respect the addiction for what it is. It's an addiction. If you relapse, own it. Okay, yeah, I was out there and I relapsed, and hopefully I learned from it. What did I learn from it? That's something that you'll talk about with your sponsor or in your classes or whatever. What did I learn from it? How do I protect myself for next time? You know, you went away. So that's like me hanging out in a bar for 30 days in a row. And they do say, and I'm just gonna go back to AA one more time, if you hang out in a barbershop every single day, you're bound to get a haircut. So, if you're hanging out and you don't have the tools that you need and the resources and the strength, because it takes a lot of strength, not strength in character, but just strength in, maybe I need to reach out or tell on myself or whatever. When we have that relapse, so we relapsed. Okay, we relapsed again. There ain't nothing we can do about it. It's done, right? So it's moving forward right now. Yes, viewer question. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, this question is from Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Do you recommend any books to read to help keep us in recovery from food addiction?
Yes, Dr. Felice's workbook.
Yeah. So you guys, we're going to be doing classes, and they're going to be online as well. There are a lot of great books out there about recovery. There are some really, really like simple, easy things, like we do a daily dose of sanity. I do it with one of my sponsees. We do a daily dose of sanity. It's one thing that we read each day, and we talk about it, and always to be doing gratitude lists and stuff like that. There are so many books out there about addiction. You can pick any of them up. If you're not active in a recovery community, it makes it almost impossible.
I love that question, and what I'm going to suggest is we have a private group on Facebook called Downsizing
Weight Loss.
So please put up your book suggestions. So I think if we could just have a quick share.
Yeah, so we'll do that actually.
Share your best books that have worked for you. Let's post it there. Let's share amongst each other because we are a community sharing resources.
Yeah, and so that's Downsizing Weight Loss. And I'll put that up on My Weight for Recovery, and we could share My Weight for Recovery as well, but I'll go ahead and put the name of the group so that you could join the group. In the Downsizing Weight Loss group, it's a little bit more personal. We do our gratitude lists there. It's a place where we can talk about our challenges privately, so that it's not out there for the whole entire world.
I always thought that was Why Wait for Recovery, the downside.
It's a private group,
right.
So you have to be, you asked to join it, and
Right,
we allowed you to because you're special.
So
all the special kids.
Wait, so let me explain the difference. So the Why Wait for Recovery page is our storefront. It's essentially the place where people go to find out more on what we're about. Downsizing Weight Loss is our VIP room.
Yeah.
So only VIPs of our community can actually go in and share, because our journeys are so personal. So it gives us an open, free space that's non-judgmental for us to be able to share and ask questions and post things and your favorite book and what food plan worked for you.
Yeah, and if you're having some challenges, so the whole entire planet doesn't need to see what your challenges are. You know, the people that look at us as, oh, well, you know, we don't really have a problem. We don't really have a disease. We're just weak. Love you guys.
And also just something
Great
on that as
question.
well. For me, for a long time, I carried a lot of shame of what other people would think. So it was a personal journey. I didn't want my family, friends, in the beginning, knowing that I had a food issue. I was a food addict or an addict full stop. So I hid that for a while. This helped me transition out into recovery and become more open.
Yeah. Yes. Question. There's a
So
question out
this
there.
question is from Andy.
Hi, Andy.
He said, he says, "Hi, I'm new here. How do you feel about using the 12 steps for food addiction? Thanks."
So the 12 steps, the spiritual principles behind the 12 steps, you guys, are honesty, hope, faith, open-mindedness, courage, perseverance, integrity, brotherly love. If everybody would live by those spiritual principles, the whole entire world would be a nicer place to live. And so if you look at the spiritual principles behind the 12 steps and you live by those principles, that's what recovery is all about, right? Recovery is a spiritual change, right? So we learn to get happy, we learn to be kind, we learn to be of service, we learn to get out of self. I wrote a workbook as well that's also about changing spiritually, and that's going to be the basis for any type of recovery, for sustained recovery, is getting well here. And thanks for that question. That was a great question. Yes, 12 steps are amazing. I think, the challenge is for me as a PA, when I was seeing people in my office, and I would talk to them about a recovery program, it seemed what they were saying, what they were sharing with me, was that they weren't getting enough at meetings that they were going to, and that there wasn't enough of a community for people, not just with eating disorders, but especially focusing on overeating, emotional overeating, obesity, and binging.
Compulsive.
Yeah, compulsive overeating, right. So that part of it. And that's what we focus on. And so when we talk about stuff, it's always going to go back to that. So yeah, but anything that you're going to do that's going to help you in your recovery is awesome. Do it. It's awesome. Thanks. Great question.
But wasn't the question, didn't he ask, maybe he wasn't familiar with what you do, but that is 12-step for food too?
Yeah, so 12 steps is addiction.
Oh.
Yeah, so first step, we admitted we were powerless and our life became unmanageable. I got clean, you guys, in AA. So yes, do I believe in 12 steps for anything? Yes. With anorexia, that's not something that I talk about at an AA meeting, because it's not what's talked about at an AA meeting, right? And so in NA, they talk about drugs, in AA, they talk about alcohol, and in OA, overeating. We made this community so that we could be more focused on what's going on with us and make that spiritual change. And learn how not to use.
Part of my attraction I got clean in My Way for Recovery.
Right.
So
You got clean in My Way for Recovery.
Right. So I went into OA, but I didn't find the recovery in OA. For me, it didn't resonate as much, and that, I think, resonance is part of what helped me in recovery. I need to connect to the material. I knew I was spiritually broken, but I knew something was out of balance, because that's what I was using. Otherwise, if I'm happy, I'm not using. But it didn't give me the exact tools that I needed, but it helped me give the basis. So in terms of spiritual recovery, 12 steps were a great step in it, but I needed more. I needed the techniques, the community, and more practical implementation, which I've got from My Way.
Right, and so OA, as far as OA goes, there are a lot of people that get clean in OA, and I think that OA is amazing, you guys. I think all of the 12-step programs are absolutely
100%.
amazing. We were fortunate enough to meet when you were at the beginning of your journey, and remember, everybody learns differently, right? So everybody learns differently. Yeah, but good question. Any kind of program that you're going to do that has to do with you feeling better and doing the next right thing is an amazing thing to do, is awesome. And that includes any of the 12-step programs.
I understand when you say you're doing the next right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what it means, but I don't understand what it means practically.
Okay, so practically, Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the example. Okay, I know you're asking her, but I interrupt is the thing I do. So I'm sitting overseas. I've been working on a real estate deal for the last year and a half. Okay, running,
Over
spending
there?
hours. No, here. Spending hours. We're in contract. We're closing. Things mess up. I'm in Africa. Very little contact with anything. I did the work before. I was running with my client, doing all the paperwork, doing everything I needed to do to make this deal close. Things are fucking up. Can't control it. I'm in Africa. Deal falls apart. I did the next right thing. I stepped up. I did everything I needed to do. Things didn't work out. Do I go beat myself up and then go indulge and do a sugar binge or whatever other binge because it didn't close? Or things happen, even though I showed up and did the next right thing.
Okay, so for me, doing the next right thing is living in gratitude. So that's my number one thing, right? Because the two things I'm in control of are my perspective and my actions. We talked about this last week. So I could already come up with 10 things. If I chose to look for 10 things that went wrong this morning, I bet I could find them. If I choose to look at 10 things that went right this morning, it was really cool in the house when I woke up. I love my blanket. I was wearing my favorite pajamas. Angelique called to see if I wanted coffee. I got here on time. Haiti was home. It's great to see you guys. I love doing this in the morning. It changes my attitude and helps to change my perspective as well. You know, like those are things that I could look at, bam, 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 that I'm grateful for. And that helps to keep me happy. And if I look at 10 things so far that I was miserable about, it allows me to be miserable. And so for me, the first thing about doing the next right thing is looking at what's positive in my life, so spiritually I can be fit. One of the things about doing the next right thing is living in acceptance as best as I can. Again, it's gonna rain, okay. Do I wanna get upset that it's gonna rain? Because it ain't gonna change the fact that it's gonna rain. Or do I wanna be in acceptance and say, okay, it's gonna rain, it won't be as hot out today, that'll be awesome. Right? So for me, doing the next right thing is always doing whatever I need to do and looking at perspective-wise what I choose to look at that's great, because it makes me a happier, healthier human being, and it allows me to be of service to other people. For me, that's what doing the next right thing means. So I'm living in acceptance with gratitude, and I'm of service as best as I can be to others. Right? And so if I'm in gratitude, I'm not beating myself up, I'm not being mean to you, I'm not freaking out because the deal went, right? It's those basics, are being in gratitude, living with acceptance, and doing the best that I can do, and then not beating myself up because I'm not perfect. Yes?
That doesn't mean that the thoughts don't happen. That means you choose to bring yourself back to a place where you don't.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that, and that's right. And so Ange said, it's not that bad thoughts don't come into play, because they do. They come into our head. And then it's choosing to change our perspective and looking at it a different way. Thank you. So that's for me, that's what it means.
So it's that stuff that resonates well in your soul. So you know when you're going to say something or do something, when it doesn't feel quite right, you know it's not right.
Right, if
And
it's
when it
giving you a
feels really
stomachache
good,
to do something,
yeah.
don't do it. Right?
No, yeah, you know, I mean,
It's like finding that $10 on the floor that someone dropped. Do you pick it up and give it back to them, or do you put it in your wallet? I mean, how does
well,
it
as
resonate
a
in your
Buddhist,
world?
I would go, fuck them.
Those are the choices we make. So it's
We'll
different
talk
for
about that
everyone.
another time. We good question-wise?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so, you know, when you talk about the relationships that you had that were built around chaos, right? And those are relationships that, those are situations that you're not stepping into anymore. Why? You're not stepping into it because they make you feel like crap, right? And there's a whole bunch of negativity.
I did go to dinner with a bunch of our friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they all were drinking wine or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even want to. I just
Good.
they're such a good group of girls
Yeah.
that we
I
just
think that group made you realize that the other groups that you've been hanging out with
Yeah.
are not
yeah.
having that same good effect.
Yeah, so
on
we
you.
went to Miami, we had dinner, and they're all drinking, and it wasn't weird, it wasn't anything.
Good.
I mean, they were funny because we all ordered food and they got lobster and macaroni and cheese and stuff like that. And they all took the green beans off their plate and they're like, here, do you want them? And they
You're the green bean
great.
girl.
I'm like, here, take the potatoes. Like it was
Good.
It was really, it's good.
And nobody judged you for it, correct?
No.
And
They are
nobody
very
hassled you
accepting.
for it,
Yeah.
and all of
Yeah.
the stuff that we worried about to begin with. Well, what am I going to say? What am I?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares.
And didn't you have a great night?
Yes.
Everyone
Yes,
had
she
a great
did.
night.
Yes,
Right.
and no
I'm gonna be
hangover.
honest, I didn't
Right.
go because I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna go and want to taste the macaroni and cheese and want it, but I deal with things differently.
Mhm.
Like, especially, I'm very new to this, so
Mhm.
I'm shadowing her.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna go because I don't want to be the one like, oh God, I really want to taste that, but I don't. I'm just gonna remove myself from the situation.
And that's personal to each one of us,
But I
right?
wanted her to go and see. I was like, so how was it? Like, was it a struggle? Was it easy? And she's like, it was fine. We had a great time. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, damn, I should have went. You know?
Yeah, and so one of the, doing the next right thing is knowing where you can go, where you can't go, right? What feels okay for you and what doesn't feel okay for you. The situations that we put ourselves in. Yeah.
I just want to relate to what you were saying in terms of recovery from food addiction. For a long time, I always thought that I was punishing myself, that being in recovery was a diet. It was another diet, that I needed to stop eating these and stop doing things until it became a choice. And the choice was I felt better in myself when I was doing certain things and not doing
It's so
certain things.
true.
And it doesn't stop other people doing whatever they're doing, and they can do it in front of me because I've made those choices for myself, what works for me.
I agree because like last weekend my husband and I went away. We were in South Beach and we went to a bunch of nice restaurants and we didn't eat anything bad. We didn't drink. We made good choices and still had a good time.
Right.
And Sunday morning I was laying in the hotel room watching this.
Not hungover.
Not hungover.
Not
Yeah.
hungover. So, you're right, so you
know,
remember.
I guess it's all about what you want.
You were at a hotel in South Beach watching this?
Yes, I was.
And so that's okay. And so at this point, you said I was in a hotel. I was on vacation. I was doing my best, which you did. Doing the next right thing, which you did. And in the morning, I chose to pay attention to what was happening in a group because that's better for me. Feeds my soul a little
Definitely
bit,
helps.
Yes.
right? And reminds me of where I am. Staying in community, you guys, reminds me that I'm an addict.
I agree. When I miss the meeting
Yeah.
and don't come, it's,
Well, we had a rough day on Thursday,
Yeah, we
and
did.
it's because we were not here on Wednesday.
yeah.
But we pulled it
I'm
together.
sorry you had a
and-
rough
no,
day,
no, no, no,
yeah.
I don't. Oh, I thought you were.
No, I'm sorry that you had a rough
Sorry that
day.
there was no meeting.
No,
So it's not
there
your
was not.
I watched a Wednesday meeting, and you were talking about like making food if you're going somewhere or doing something, and I've been going back and forth up to Fort Lake Worth, and so it never occurred to me to do that.
Yeah,
So I've been doing that.
good. Yeah, so
It's
that's
the answer,
taking a
'cause that's why
suggestion.
we failed this
Yeah.
week, and that's why we were off track because
You
we
have to
didn't
plan.
Right, and you guys said last week you were real successful because you did plan out your
Right, yeah,
food,
yeah,
right,
we
for the
know
whole
where we
week,
went
and you
wrong.
Yeah.
prepared your lunches, and you guys ate lunch together, and just makes it easier. Doesn't make it foolproof. You know, there's relapse sucks, you guys. You know, a lot of us do it, so it sucks.
There's so
You know,
much-
but it doesn't mean that we can't get back up, and we can protect ourselves as best as we can. So one of the things that we do with food addiction is we do prep our meals as best as we can. And the other stuff that we do is that we stay in community and we stay attached, and we do our gratitude lists every night. Such a little thing. Who out there still refuses to do a gratitude list? 10 seconds to change your perspective. I don't think you don't do it. I never even said that.
I know, but
Is this the guilt?
That's
coming
about
out?
you. Yeah, I didn't say that.
I do every morning and every night. I do a practice where I have to appreciate my life and appreciate life, and I actually it is my religion to do that.
Very cool. Yeah, so I wasn't talking about you, but I'll talk about you now. I'll take, yeah. That
One
was
of the
awesome.
interesting things in the journey of recovery for me was realizing boundaries, setting them and establishing them, and especially when I've been doing the same dance with the same people, my husband, my kids, it's been the same dance forever and ever, and to be able to turn around and say, I can't do this now, and walk away, and either, when I was a kid, it was easier to be able to go into a meeting or step away or just step out of the situation until I was able to deal with it, because I've created certain dynamics in my family that are not necessarily healthy, but being in recovery is helping me recreate boundaries.
I've started doing it.
Yeah.
and
Like
big
what?
shift.
Like what?
And setting boundaries, you guys, when you're talking about that, we're talking about doing our best to do our best or doing the next right thing. That's one of the things that we do. 5 minutes left. That's one of the things that we do for ourselves because it keeps our life happier and nicer, right? Remember, we teach people how to treat us.
What's an example of a boundary?
So a boundary would be when I've learned I cannot multitask. And what would normally happen is I'd have the kids bombarding me with information. Everyone comes to me at the same time, either I'm on the toilet or on the phone. It's like one of those things. Everyone wants everything now.
As long as
So-
you don't confuse them.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
Good
So the
point.
thing is really being able to turn around to them and saying, listen, I'll talk to you later, I've got to finish this, or I'm not doing this, or we would become combative, that we'd go around in a little point rather than focusing on the big picture, and I'd go, listen, I can't talk to you about this now, we will readdress it later. So being able to walk away, because when I'm in chaos and stressed out is when I start looking for things. And that's where I put myself, it's my perspective at that stage. I'm a little ADHD, so I tend to fixate on things. So if I'm able to just push away and walk away for a bit, clears my head and doesn't make it go away, but it gives me space to be able to deal with it in a calm.
And I'm going to give you a real simple. For me, perhaps because of the way that I was brought up, you can disagree with me and you can dislike me and I'm okay with that, but don't raise your voice to me. And that's something that people know. And so if I'm in a relationship and somebody is shouting at me, I will say to that person, I need to leave. That person knows that it's one of the things that it makes me actually feel ill. So that is something from when I was little, but still, you're not allowed to scream at me. That's one of my boundaries. You could tell me anything. You could tell me you're mad. You could tell me you don't like me. You could tell me, I don't care as long as you're talking with me like this. When you raise your voice to me, I'm gonna walk out of the room or walk out of the house. So that's one of my boundaries. You can say whatever you need to say to me as long as you don't scream at me. As long as it's coming from a place in your heart where you're adding something to a situation, whether you're angry or not, as opposed to screaming at me. It's just not something that's okay with me, and so I don't allow it, and that's boundary of mine.
So also,
We have 2 more minutes, so.
Okay, as a crowd pleaser, I've learned no is a full sentence. So I need to stand behind that instead of justifying why I'm saying no to people.
Right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, and we talk about that always. And we always end with the promises from Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I'm going to read them because these promises do come true. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change, right? We change our perspective. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that the universe does for us what we can't do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? I don't think so. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, but they always do materialize if we work at it every day, you guys, if we work at our recovery. I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery. This was Why Wait for Recovery, Sunday morning community meeting. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being out there. Thank you for coming home.
I'm so happy to be home, and just join us on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, same place, same time. Bring friends, come to the rooms, join us online, hook up with us on Facebook. It's all the good stuff is up there, and we will see you Wednesday night, and I'm so blessed and grateful.
Peace out, you guys.
Peace out, everybody.
Peace out.
Oh, what a nice rainy day.